After my accident put me in the hospital, my parents appeared solely to inquire if I'd co-sign my brother's loan. Never once did they ask if I felt all right. That was when I truly realized I'd been self-reliant the entire time. Oh, man, you are not going to believe this. Imagine almost dying, only to have the people who are supposed to love you most show up 4 days later, not to comfort you, but to demand you sign over your life savings for your brother's failing business. That's exactly what happened to me, and it fundamentally changed everything I thought I knew about family. For as long as I can remember, I, now 26, was the invisible kid. You know the type, the background character in everyone else's main moment. My younger brother, Derek, 23, he was the golden child. I'm not exaggerating. Our family photo albums, basically a shrine to Derek. Baby Derek's first smile, first steps, even baby Derek eating mashed peas. Me? Maybe 6 photos total, and 2 of those were group shots where you could barely see my face. The favoritism was so obvious it would make a social worker weep. Everything Derek did was celebrated like he'd cured cancer. A participation trophy, dinner at his favorite restaurant, passed his driver's test on the 3rd try, brand new car. He drew a stick figure. Mom framed it like it was a priceless Rembrandt. Meanwhile, I graduated valedictorian of my high school class, and my mom just mumbled, "That's nice, honey," without even looking up from whatever gourmet meal she was making for Derek's post-practice snack. I got a full scholarship to college, and my dad's response, "Good. That saves us some money." No pride. No congratulations. Just a monetary observation. I won a regional engineering competition, and nobody even remembered to ask how it went. Let me paint a clearer picture of my childhood. When I was 14, I busted my butt all summer, mowing lawns, trimming hedges, spreading mulch until I smelled like a garden center even after 3 showers. I saved up $400 to buy myself a decent bike because I knew asking my parents was pointless. 2 weeks later, Derek just decided he wanted it. Walked into the garage, took my bike. When I complained, my parents told me to stop being selfish and share with your brother. When I pointed out I'd paid for it with my own money, my dad actually said, "Well, everything under this roof belongs to the family." The bike mysteriously disappeared a month later. Derek claimed someone stole it. My parents bought him a brand new one the next week, better than mine. I never got reimbursed. When I dared to bring it up at dinner, my mom told me I was being materialistic, while Derek showed off his shiny new ride through the dining room window. The hypocrisy was sickening. School was the same. Derek was a C student, but he had this charm. He'd flash a smile, crack a self-deprecating joke, and suddenly AD became showing real improvement. Me? I had to earn every single grade, staying up until 2 a.m., making sure every assignment was perfect. My report cards were a parade of A's and A+S. My parents would glance at them, nod, and then spend 20 minutes dissecting Derek's C- in history, planning how they could support him better. I remember in 10th grade, I won a state-level essay competition, a $500 scholarship, and a ceremony downtown. I poured my heart into that essay. When I told my parents, genuinely excited for once, my mom said, "That's the same weekend as Derek's band concert. We can't be in 2 places at once." They went to Derek's concert. He played the triangle. The triangle. He hit it exactly 4 times the whole performance, and my parents acted like he'd performed a solo at Carnegie Hall. I went to my ceremony alone, telling organizers my parents were traveling. The coordinator gave me a look of pity I still remember. The double standards extended to everything. Chores, curfews, expectations. Derek's room could look like a tornado hit it. If I had a sock out of place, I'd hear about it for a week. Cleanliness reflects character. My mom would preach, conveniently only to me. Derek could stay out until midnight. If I wasn't home by 9 p.m., my phone would explode with aggressive texts. When I pointed out Derek was out till 1 a.m. the previous night, she'd say, "That's different. Derek is more social." More social. That was their catch-all excuse for everything. By 17, I was self-sufficient out of necessity. I cooked my own meals because Mom would forget to make enough for me. I'd come down for dinner, see 4 pork chops, 1 for Mom, 1 for Dad, 2 for Derek because he's a growing boy, and none for me. "Oh, I thought you were eating at a friend's house," she'd say, even though I'd been upstairs the whole time. I did my own laundry. I figured out college applications, financial aid, scholarships completely alone. My parents were too busy hiring a tutor for Derek's community college placement tests. Here's the thing about being the forgotten kid. You either let it break you, or you let it build you. I chose option 2. While Derek was being celebrated for breathing, I was working part-time jobs, saving every penny, planning my escape. I knew the day I turned 18, I needed a plan that didn't depend on anyone in that house. I worked at a hardware store, and the old guys there taught me more practical skills than my father ever did. Plumbing, electrical work, carpentry. By senior year, I was making decent money doing home repairs, all while maintaining my GPA. I got a full scholarship to a state university 4 hours from home. Engineering program. My parents barely acknowledged it. My dad, again, good. That'll save us some money. Save them money? They weren't planning to contribute anyway. My college fund, which I later discovered existed, had been reallocated to cover Derek's car payments after he got fired from his third job. I found this out by accident, saw the bank statements. When I confronted them, they said the money belonged to the family, and Derek needed it more. The pattern never changed. College was where I finally started to breathe. For the first time, I wasn't being compared to Derek. I wasn't invisible. Professors noticed my work. Classmates wanted to hang out. I thrived. Dean's List every semester. Internships. Research projects. Every accomplishment felt like proof. There was nothing wrong with me. The problem had always been them. I graduated with honors, landed a solid job in the Midwest, and started building a life that was entirely my own. I bought a modest house at 24, adopted a dog, Biscuit, who greets me like I'm the most important person in the world. Because to him, I am. That's what unconditional love looks like. Meanwhile, back home, the Derek show continued. He bounced from job to job, none lasting more than 6 months. Always someone else's fault. He moved back home at 21 after his roommates kicked him out for not paying rent. My parents welcomed him back with open arms and a fully stocked fridge. When I asked my mom about it, she said Derek was going through a transitional period and needed family support. The same family support I never got. Derek's latest venture was a custom auto detailing shop, which I knew immediately was either a scam or would fail spectacularly. He had zero experience in business, cars, or basic responsibility. But my parents were convinced it would make him rich. They'd already invested their retirement savings into securing a location. I heard about it from my aunt, who always saw through the favoritism. She'd slip me cash on my birthday when my parents forgot, came to my school events. She was the only adult who made me feel seen. Your parents have lost their minds, she told me. They've emptied their 401k for Derek's car washing fantasy. I wasn't surprised, just disappointed. This was just the latest chapter in the Derek can do no wrong saga. I stayed out of it. Their money, their choice, their inevitable regret. Then came the accident. It was a Tuesday evening in March. I was driving home, same route, listening to a podcast. Clear weather, normal traffic. I was thinking about dinner, the gym, the regular, mundane thoughts that fill your head when you don't know your life is about to change. Then some idiot in a pickup truck ran a red light and T-boned my car at 45 miles per hour. I don't remember the impact. 1 second, chicken stir fry. The next, waking up in an ambulance, strangers asking if I knew my name. The damage was extensive. 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, a fractured collarbone, a concussion that made the hospital lights feel like tiny knives stabbing my brain. 6 hours of surgery. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive. Lucky felt ironic, since I couldn't take a breath without feeling like my chest was crushed. I spent 2 days in the ICU, drifting in and out. Machines beeping, nurses checking. The pain was unbelievable. My buddy from work, Nathan, found out what happened after I didn't show up to a meeting. He tracked me down, became my emergency contact. He called my parents to tell them their son was in critical condition. Want to know how long it took them to show up? For days. For agonizing days. I was literally fighting for my life. Hooked up to machines, unable to breathe on my own for 48 hours. And it took them 4 days to drive a 6-hour trip. Nathan told me when he called, my mom's first response was, "Well, is it serious? We have a lot going on this week." A lot going on. Her son is in the ICU, and she has a lot going on. Nathan, bless his heart, apparently went off on her, told her I'd almost died and maybe, just maybe, that should take priority. She said she'd see what they could do, and hung up. When they finally showed up on day 4, I was out of the ICU, but still in rough shape. Couldn't sit up, couldn't breathe deeply without screaming, head pounding. I was also on serious pain meds, which probably explains why I didn't immediately tell them to leave. My mom walked in, looking around the hospital room like she was inspecting a hotel. She glanced at the machines, my bruised and bandaged body, with the same expression she'd use for a carpet stain. My dad followed, checking his phone. He didn't even look at me. Sat down by the window, scrolling. Derek wasn't with them, which, honestly, was a relief. You look terrible, my mom said. Not, how are you feeling? Not, thank God you're alive. Just, you look terrible. Thanks, Mom. Your bedside manner is truly unparalleled. My dad finally glanced up. The doctors say you'll make a full recovery, he said, like he was reading a weather report. That's good news. I waited for something more. A hug, a tear, some indication they'd been worried. Some acknowledgement that this was scary, that they'd rushed here. But instead, there was this awkward silence. Then my mom sat down and said the words that would change everything. So, we need to talk to you about something important. Oh, I should have known. I should have known. My entire life, my parents never wanted to talk about something important unless it involved me sacrificing something for Derek. But I was drugged, in pain, and stupidly, pathetically hopeful that maybe this near-death experience had finally made them see me. Derek's business is ready to open, my mom continued, her voice taking on that excited tone she only used for her precious younger son. The location is perfect. Equipment ordered. Everything's falling into place. I stared at her, trying to process. I was lying in a hospital bed with broken bones, and she was talking about Derek's car wash. That's great. I managed, my voice raspy. There's just one small problem, my dad said, finally putting his phone down, looking at me like I was a business partner instead of his injured son. The bank won't approve the loan for the initial inventory and operating costs without a cosigner. My stomach dropped, and it had nothing to do with my injuries. Derek's credit isn't established enough, my mom explained, as if this was a perfectly reasonable request. And your father and I already used our house as collateral. We can't take on any more risk ourselves. What does this have to do with me? I asked, even though I knew the answer the moment she said important. My dad leaned forward, clasping his hands. We need you to co-sign the loan. It's only $85,000. With your job and credit score, the bank will approve it immediately. It's practically a formality. $85,000. They wanted me to put my name on an $85,000 loan for my brother's pipe dream while I was lying there, before they'd even asked if I was okay. Are you serious right now? I asked, genuinely hoping this was a fever dream. It's a solid investment, my mom said, completely missing the point. Derek's done so much research. He's watched YouTube videos. YouTube videos. That was her evidence. I'm in the hospital, I said slowly, enunciating each word like I was talking to children. I almost died. And the first thing you want to talk about is co-signing a loan. My dad had the audacity to look annoyed. We understand you're not feeling well, but this is time sensitive. The bank needs an answer by Friday. Not feeling well. Not feeling well. I had 3 broken ribs and a hole in my lung, and my father described it as not feeling well, like a mild cold. You haven't asked me a single question about my accident, I said, the realization hitting me like a second car crash. My words were flat, emotionless, because I was too shocked to feel anything else. You walked in here and haven't asked how I'm doing. What happened? How long I'll be here? Whether the other driver was caught? Nothing. The only reason you came is because you need something from me. My mom put on that wounded expression she uses when caught doing something wrong, like she was the victim. That's not fair. Of course, we care about you. We drove all this way. Then why did it take you 4 days to show up? I snapped, my voice cracking. Nathan called you the night of the accident. I was in surgery for 6 hours. I could have died on that table, and you couldn't be bothered to get in your car? We had obligations, my dad said, as if that explained everything. Derek had important meetings about the business. We couldn't just drop everything. There it was. The truth I'd known my whole life, finally spoken out loud without pretense. Derek's hypothetical business meetings were more important than their other son's life-threatening emergency. He'd said it like it was obvious. Get out, I said. My mom's jaw dropped. Excuse me. Get out of my room. I'm not co-signing anything, and I don't want to see either of you right now. My dad stood, his face turning that particular shade of red it gets when someone dares defy him. You're being dramatic. This is a family matter, and you're going to help your brother whether you like it or not. I said, get out. I reached for the nurse call button, my broken collarbone screaming in protest. Or I'll have security escort you out. My mom started crying, her go-to manipulation tactic. How can you be so selfish after everything we've done for you? I actually laughed at that, which hurt like hell with my broken ribs, but I couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. What exactly have you done for me? Stolen my college fund? Forgot my birthday 6 years in a row? Showed up 4 days late to my deathbed to ask for money? Please, enlighten me. She couldn't, because there was nothing to say. 26 years of being the afterthought, the backup plan, the spare kid. It had taken a near-death experience and an $85,000 loan request, but I finally saw the truth with crystal clarity. I was never their son. I was a resource to be exploited. We're not leaving until you agree to help your brother, my dad said, crossing his arms like he was intimidating a teenager. I pressed the nurse call button again. 30 seconds later, a no-nonsense nurse named Patricia appeared. She took one look at my monitors, then at my visitors, and asked if everything was okay. My visitors are leaving now, I said. They're not welcome back. Patricia didn't hesitate. She threatened to call security, and my parents finally retreated, my mom throwing tearful guilt trips over her shoulder. We're your family. You can't just cut us out. Derek is counting on you. The door closed, and for the first time since they'd walked in, I could breathe. Well, as much as my punctured lung would allow. Nathan came back an hour later with food. He took one look at my face and said, "What happened? You look worse than when I left." I told him everything. The loan request, the demand, the complete lack of concern. He listened, his expression darkening. When I finished, he just shook his head. "Dude, I knew your family was messed up, but that's next level. Sociopath level selfishness." Yeah, I agreed. I think I finally realized something, though. What's that? I've been raising myself this whole time. They never did any of it. They were just there, taking up space, taking my resources. But they were never actually my parents in any real sense. Nathan nodded slowly. "So what are you going to do?" "What I should have done years ago," I said. "Cut them off completely." Recovery was brutal. Weeks of not working, months of physical rehab, ongoing pain. My medical bills were astronomical. But you know what? I didn't have to deal with my parents. For the first 3 weeks, they called constantly. First pressure about the loan, then guilt trips, then threats. Voicemails from my mom's tearful pleas to my dad's angry ultimatums. I changed my number. They emailed. I blocked them. They tried showing up at my house, but Nathan was staying with me and told them to leave or he'd call the cops. Derek tried reaching out through social media. His message was a masterpiece of manipulation. He talked about how hurt he was, how I was punishing him for their behavior, how his business dream was falling apart, how he'd always looked up to me. He even threw in a story about how hard his life was. I didn't respond. What was there to say? He'd benefited from the favoritism his whole life, watched me get neglected, never once stood up for me. And now that the gravy train was threatened, now he looked up to me? Please. The loan deadline came and went. Without a cosigner, the bank rejected Derek's application. From what my aunt told me, my parents were devastated. They'd sunk so much money into the business they couldn't back out, but they couldn't move forward either. The building sat empty, lease payments draining whatever savings they had left. 3 months after the accident, I got a letter. Not an email, an actual physical letter. From my mom. 12 pages long. The first 8 pages were a detailed history of everything they'd ever done for me. From giving me life, to putting a roof over my head, to that one time they came to my elementary school play. She conveniently left out they left at intermission for Derek's basketball practice. It was a greatest hits album of parental bare minimums, presented as extraordinary sacrifices. The last 4 pages were about Derek, how his dream was dead, how depressed he was, how the family was falling apart, how it was all my fault because I was holding a grudge. She ended by saying if I had any love left, I'd call them and make things right. I read the whole thing, then put it through my paper shredder. Look, I'm not a heartless person. I understand my parents are flawed humans. But their best actively harmed me. Their best made me feel invisible and worthless for 2 decades. Their best showed up 4 days late to my near-death experience with a loan application instead of a hug. At some point, You have to stop making excuses for people who hurt you just because you share DNA. 6 months post-accident, I was mostly healed physically. Emotionally, I was doing better than ever. Without the constant dysfunction, I had space to process everything. All the little moments of neglect that had added up to a lifetime of feeling less than. I saw things clearly for the first time. The way I'd pushed myself, trying to earn love that was never going to come. The way I'd measured my worth by their recognition, a rigged game. And how desperately I'd wanted their approval that I probably would have co-signed if they'd just asked nicely and shown a shred of concern. That last part scared me. It showed me how close I'd come to financial ruin just for a moment of feeling included. Here's the update you've all been waiting for. Last week, my aunt called me with news. Derek's business never recovered. Without operating capital, he couldn't buy equipment. The building lease became a money pit. My parents ended up having to sell their house to cover the debts. They're now renting a small apartment, and Derek is living with them, because of course he is. And here's the kicker that really takes the whole cake. They're trying to sue me. Let that sink in. My parents, who neglected me for 26 years, who showed up to my hospital room to ask for money instead of asking if I was okay, who tried to guilt and manipulate me into signing an $85,000 loan, are now trying to sue me for intentional interference with business relationships and emotional distress. Their lawyer sent a demand letter claiming my refusal to support the family business caused irreparable harm, and I owed them $150,000 in damages. $150,000 for not co-signing a loan while I was in the hospital with broken ribs and a punctured lung. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Catherine, laughed for a solid minute when she read it. "This is the most frivolous lawsuit I've seen in 15 years, she said. "No judge in their right mind would let this proceed." She was right. We filed a motion to dismiss, and the case was thrown out within 3 weeks. The judge actually commented on how absurd the claims were and warned my parents' lawyer about filing frivolous suits. But here's where it gets even better. Catherine advised me to countersue for harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We had evidence. The hospital records showing they waited 4 days, the nurse's notes about them being asked to leave, the voicemails demanding money, the emails threatening me, that 12-page letter. Catherine built a case that was basically airtight. We won. Not a huge amount, but enough to cover my legal fees and a chunk of the medical bills insurance didn't pay for. Turns out the paper trail of their harassment, combined with the hospital records, painted a pretty clear picture of who the actual victims were here. The court date was something else. My parents sat across from me, looking smaller than I remembered. My mom was wearing too much makeup, like she tried to cry-proof herself, but overdone it. My dad kept adjusting his tie like it was choking him. Derek was there too, slouched in his chair, scrolling on his phone, looking like he was at his own funeral. My mom tried to make eye contact, doing that wounded puppy routine. I kept my gaze on the judge, on Catherine, anywhere but at them. When the judge ruled in my favor, my mom actually stood up and started crying about how I was destroying the family. The judge told her to sit down, or she'd be held in contempt. Derek muttered something under his breath and went back to his phone. Some things never change. After the ruling, Catherine told me I could pursue more aggressive action. There was evidence my parents had committed fraud by misrepresenting the business's viability to get their initial loans. She said I had a strong case. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Part of me wanted to see them face real consequences for a lifetime of selfishness and neglect. Part of me wanted them to finally understand what it felt like to be the one getting kicked while you're down. But then I realized something. I was free. For the first time in my entire life, I was completely, totally free of them. Pursuing more legal action would just keep me tied to their drama, their toxicity, their endless capacity for making everything about themselves. I was tired of being a character in the Derek show. I wanted to be the main character of my own life. So I told Catherine to let it go. The settlement covered what I needed. The lawsuit proved I wasn't going to be pushed around. And now, I could really move on. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I haven't heard a word from my parents or Derek. My aunt keeps me updated occasionally, but I've asked her to keep it minimal. I don't need to know the details of their continuing dysfunction. I've got my own life to live, and what a life it is. I got promoted at work. I started coaching Little League on weekends, working with kids who remind me of myself when I was young, trying to be the supportive adult I never had. Biscuit and I go hiking every Saturday. I'm even dating someone, a woman named Sarah, Who thinks it's insane that my parents acted the way they did? And who has the most supportive, loving family I've ever seen? Her family has basically adopted me at this point. Her mom sends me care packages with homemade cookies. Her dad asks about my engineering projects and actually listens to the answers. Her brother invited me to his fantasy football league. It's weird and wonderful, and everything I never knew I was missing. The point of this whole story isn't that I got revenge. It's not that I won the lawsuit or that they lost everything because of their own choices. The point is that I finally realized I'd been raising myself all along. Every accomplishment, every obstacle I overcame, every bit of success I've built, that was all me. Not because of my parents, but despite them. For 26 years, I waited for them to see me, to value me, to treat me like their son instead of their afterthought. And when I was lying in that hospital bed, broken and vulnerable, they finally showed me they never would. That was the moment I stopped waiting. That was the moment I stopped being the invisible kid hoping for scraps of attention. That was the moment I realized that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who asks if you're okay before asking for anything else. My parents failed that test spectacularly, but Nathan passed it. My aunt passed it. Sarah and her family pass it every day. Biscuit passes it every time I walk through the door, and he acts like I've returned from war. So, to anyone out there who grew up like me, the forgotten kid, the unfavored child, the one who always came second, you're not crazy, you're not ungrateful, and you're not wrong to expect better. Some families are just broken in ways that can't be fixed, and that's not your fault. Have you ever faced a similar kind of betrayal from your own family? What was your turning point? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.